everybody, this is the Drop the Beat podcast. My name is Charles Laurita.
And I'm Will Sarver, and we want to thank you for listening to us beat off today.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Wow.
So thank you guys. So thank you guys so much for listening. This is the show all about music and music-related topics with questions submitted by you guys. And I don't know, Will, if you know, but we have a way they can submit questions.
I'm honestly not aware of this. It's my first time here, so
I would say since it's your first show being here, if any of you guys listening go to www.charleslaurita.com/contact, there's a little form you can fill out with your name, where you're from, and your question, and if it's hopefully something that we can answer in a long form. And if we pick your question, we're going to send you guys a free shirt with either the Drop the Beat logo on it or the Mischief logo, or one of those guys. We have a couple to choose from. So if we pick your question, you won't be naked anymore, and we're going to clothe you. And I think it's going to be really great.
That's a really nice gesture.
I thought so.
I don't even have those T-shirts.
No, we're actually both sitting here completely buck-ass nude because no one's picked our questions yet. So we have nothing to wear. I have slippers on, though, actually, so it's not as
I'm
chilly.
wearing socks.
Nice.
It's still cold, if you know what I mean.
Oh, boy. So if we pick your question that you submit, you guys will reach back out to you and say, hey, we picked your question. We're gonna shirt your ass, and it's going to be really cool.
Oh, we should put that on a shirt.
We're going to shirt your ass?
Yeah, exactly.
I would wear that. But that's a little meta, because it's like you're talking about giving someone a shirt, but it's on a shirt already, and then we're wearing that. No, it doesn't care. I'm in. That's
Mind
perfect.
blown.
That's great. I love it. It's that's great. That's really, really good. Will, how you been in quarantine still?
Hanging. Still waiting for my T-shirt.
Oh, well, your questions are not very good.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. I'm sorry we didn't pick it.
I'm trying to write better ones.
I submitted it to the council. I mean, I don't know what you want. They just were like, nah, we ain't shirting his ass.
Exactly.
Or would it be shirt? No, it'd be pantsing your ass because it's your ass. Never mind. That's besides the point.
Yeah, but I'm
well, hey,
in.
that's good.
How you
good,
doing?
Good. That's
How you doing?
Hey, I'm okay. And I did have a really cool announcement, because by the date that we're recording the show versus when it's going to be out, this will already hopefully be public by then. But I now, as of today's date, am officially a GHS Strings endorsed artist.
Whoa!
And I'm like incredibly ecstatic about this. So I guess I wanted to throw out a little promo for those guys, because I've been going back and forth with John, who runs their artist relations over there, and just one of the nicest people. And I've been using GHS Strings for 20 years now. I've been playing guitar.
That's
the
not
only
a lot.
string that it's decently whatever. It's almost a quarter of a century, so that makes me feel old if I say that. But GHS has been the only string that I've used that entire time. Or if anyone had been like, I'll try this string or try these strings, and I've just been like, no, thank you. And I've just always gone back. So if you guys, anyone listening, are guitarists out there and you don't use GHS Strings, yes, this is a shameless plug, but also I'm telling the complete truth, because I would not have signed on with GHS if I didn't believe that their stuff was awesome. And I actually do use it, and that's all I use. So if you haven't tried GHS Strings, you probably should. Will, you should put them all over your drums, honestly.
I wish I could. I really do.
What's stopping you?
Nothing, you're right.
I was going to say, so help me God, that little guitar string on the inside of your cajon isn't a GHS string that vibrates on that head.
That's a good point.
I'm going to be really angry.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm an official GHS artist now, and I'm very, very humbled, honored, and thankful for that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, shout out to GHS.
But now I feel, huge shout out to GHS. Those guys are fantastic. And now I feel completely conceited talking about me so much. But William,
yeah, I'm over it.
We have a question that came in.
We get questions? I mean, this is my first time, so you got to walk me through.
Oh yeah. For everyone who doesn't know, this is Will Sarver. He's been in America for one day. He's doing really great. But this question comes from Michael F. from Brooklyn, New York.
Whoa.
Oh, baby. That is our good, lovely neighbor to the north.
Yeah, that's north.
That's good though. I like that. Brooklyn is awesome. You and I with the band, we've played in Brooklyn before.
Yeah, it's a great time.
It's a very, very cool place. And you know, I mean, I love New York City in general. So Michael, that's fantastic. So I'm going to be reaching back out to you to let you know that we selected your question for this week, and we're going to talk some shirts, and hopefully you dig it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But Michael had a pretty cool question this week because it's something different, and it's not necessarily anything sad or negative or depressing that we've had in like the past couple weeks. You know, where it's always like
it's very real talk.
Yeah, you and me being like, I'm so sad. I don't have any music to play. That was me doing an impression of myself.
I thought you just had oral surgery and still numb.
Oh, that was like a Mr. Smee from Peter Pan. Or like Mr. Captain Hook, or like is it Huckleberry Hound or Droopy? One of the old Hanna-Barbera ones. Anyway, I digress. Michael writes in and says, and this is pretty cool. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this topic. He says, me and my friends constantly get into arguments about who our favorite players are, but we've come to the conclusion that there's really no right answer. It's like comparing apples to oranges with some of these musicians. What would you say are some qualities that make someone a good musician? Like, do they have to be professionally trained to be considered good? Thank you guys so much. So thank you, Michael. That's an awesome question. And we're going to have fun with this one because I know for the most part, you and I have very, very similar musical tastes, but I know there are some areas where we kind of differ. And that's not a bad thing at all because I think the best part about art, like especially films, like I'm huge into movies. I'm huge into filmmaking, the process, everything behind the scenes. And my favorite part about movies are not everyone has to like the same movie. I think that's a great thing. That's the point of the art, where it's like I'm never mad if someone doesn't agree with my views because it's subjective, and I think that's very important. So I mean, that's how it is with music, you know, genres in general, but then also the players who get there. So I think a good kind of realm to cover with this thing, it's, you know, even looking at the genres, it's like, yeah, you might have, you know, when you think of like the big heavy musicians, it's always the rock stuff and the guitarists and whatever like that. But then, you know, you don't realize it's like there's dudes playing country stuff who maybe they're not doing these big gut buster solos, but they're still fabulous musicians.
Right.
And then again, it's all subjective. So, I mean, let's really kind of start this thing off. Which direction should we go in, William? Because I mean, we can hit anything. We got technique, we got style, we got genre stuff. What do you feel we should pop off on this guy?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to pick from. I mean, I guess something that can relate both to guitar and drums. I mean, well, pretty much most instruments, I would say. But from what I see is speed being one of the
definitely
categories. You see a lot of that, of people trying to play the fastest, and I guess
all of my teenage students,
right, the shredding and the chops, and I think that kind of gets tied into why some people would consider somebody a good musician. But
I mean, speed is definitely, you know, a commendable talent, you know, but the one thing I always say, fast does not equal good.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're in the realm of guitarists, I mean, two guys right off the bat who I can think of would be like a B.B. King or, you know, like a David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, where it's like they are not fast players in the least bit. But I think the one thing that you lose with speed is you lose feeling. Now, obviously, you can play fast things and make them feel, but a lot of times they start to become metronomic to a degree, and you kind of lose that feeling. And feel for me is everything. Like, I seldom talk about any of my favorite guitarists because I'm always so heavy in the bass world. Because for me, it's like the bass is the song, and that's the part that really sticks with me most. So I'm always like, favoring basses. But when we kind of get to guitarists, it's really interesting. And then even in your world, speed, you know, in the drum and percussion world, speed is always a topic for debate because it's like, yeah, people like the absolute fastest players, but does that make it good?
Right.
You know, like you and I know we share quite a few favorite drummers. I know, like you and me love like Bernard Purdie. Like he's one of our main dudes.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites.
Now yeah. I mean, we'll drop Bruce and T about Mr. Purdie over there, because I mean he's got some chops, but a lot of the stuff I think is just flat out just grooving, and it doesn't even have to be fast, which is cool.
100%. I mean, that's what he's about. For anybody listening that doesn't know who he is, he's probably...
You've all heard him. You've literally all heard him.
Yeah, he's probably, if not one of the most recorded drummers ever. He's been on thousands of tracks and has played on everything and with everybody. But I think he's gotten to that point mainly because of the way he plays, and it's all feel, like you talked about. He's all groove. He's not playing on those records playing a million notes a minute and, not busy playing, it's all seems simple. I mean, it's really not. It's super technical, and it's really hard to play those in that style and in that way with that much feel. It's very difficult. But that's what he does, and he's the guy that everybody calls. So, that's why he's one of my favorites, because like you, feel is everything to me as far as music goes.
Well, what I would even say to add on to that is I think what considers, because now we're getting in that realm, it's like what makes someone good. And I mean, I think to consider Mr. Purdie good is he's so goddamn solid. Like,
yep.
That's what it gets down to. That's why he gets the gigs. That's why he's on 4,000 records to date.
Yeah,
like he's on
nuts.
Literally everything. He's so solid. He's one of the few drummers who plays what's needed, which I think is just an incredible skill to have, where it's like he dials exactly what it needs. And that in itself is just incredibly impressive. He's not there just blowing off chops. Like he's playing to the band that he's with, and he's like a one-take dude. Like he's not in there doing multiple takes. Like, he's like a one and done.
Yeah, takes are money. Time is money.
But I mean, and then we're talking skill with that. If he was to be one of those guys to keep doing all these takes, he wouldn't get called back.
Never. He's reliable, dependent. Like you said, he plays what's needed, and I think playing what's needed is one of the hardest things to do as a musician.
I completely agree.
That takes a long time and a lot of experience to try and figure it out. Because you and I both see, you tend to see at a younger age, people wanting to play too much, too fast.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Too busy.
I was there. I mean,
we
I
were
was
all
always
there.
Yeah, we were all there.
We were all there, and
because you think fast equals good, so you got to be like, I got to do so fast. And I'm always saying to my students, slow it down.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
make it feel right.
Yes.
And it's funny because, at least for me, I don't know how it was for you, but as I got older, the less I played. It sounds weird.
Yeah.
But
no,
I simplified
that's
it as I
incredibly-
matured.
Yeah, and that is a thing of maturing with playing. My musical tastes changed. Because when I was younger, I was obviously into all my 90s pop stuff because I have such a 90s fetish and I can't move on. But other than that, a lot of super heavy rock, and I was into a lot of hair metal and a lot of really heavy stuff. And then as I aged, I started getting into more of the R&B and the funk stuff and the Motown, where now it's all about feeling.
Yeah.
And musicianship, and I would still consider the musicianship to be right up there with those shredding guys playing. Because I mean, if you look at those hair metal guys, they're just all playing classical stuff. It's all Bach runs and it's all stuff like that, and just they're Paganini stuff, and it's just with distortion on it, which is obviously impressive, and it has its purpose. But then it's I look at a lot of the session players on the Motown records, like the Funk Brothers, and it's for me, with the amount of feeling that they put in, that stuff is just as good, if not better. For me, obviously, that's, opinionated over here.
Right, yeah.
But, some of those dudes, oh, my God. You have, one of my all-time favorite musicians ever is James Jamerson, the bassist who played on, all of Marvin Gaye's records and a lot of, the Smokey Robinson stuff. Just absolute incredible master of the craft. And the best part about it is when you listen to like the What's Going On record, the Marvin Gaye record, he would come into the studio absolutely drunk, like just disgustingly drunk, and he'd be laying on his back, not able to talk, not able to walk, laying on his back, and those were the takes that you hear on that record. And it was like usually the first take. Because it was everyone playing together. Like those dudes didn't make mistakes, and that kind of I was thinking when we were talking about Mr. Bernard Purdy, the Nashville players in those studio settings. Because it's like you want to talk about incredible, good musicians that might not necessarily be on the forefront on records. Like we're not talking about like, oh, you're up front guy, but that whole realm of players is incredible because it's like those guys take what they do so incredibly seriously, and they are on every record, multiple sessions a day. You'll even have a guy where it's just like the auxiliary percussion guy where he has like maybe 2 cowbells in front of him, but you damn well know that dude is not going to mess up, and he gets paid well for what he does.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes him a good player because he does not mess up, and that's why he's on like a billion records.
Right.
I mean, I know you and I praise the Nashville guys, and you more so than I know a lot about that kind of scene.
Some of the best players out there. And
it might not be hard stuff they're doing. You might just have a guy strumming chords on something or playing basic chords and just comping on a piano, but it's like they're so solid, it's incredible.
Right.
Like to the point where it's like disgusting, like in the best possible form of disgusting. You know?
Yeah, they
like,
just
like a surfer.
Yeah, they just
disgusting.
They
bruh.
just check off all the boxes. In my opinion,
incredibly.
as far as what makes a good musician, they're a great example because they play what's needed all the time. They don't make mistakes. They're solid. They're on time. Their timing is impeccable. And they're some of the best readers on the planet.
Yes, which that with musicianship always sometimes gets tossed to the side. Because then again, that's debatable too, because it's like, oh, they know how to read incredibly and just blow through charts, where a lot of the best players like have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and that's totally
so on
fine,
that end
yeah.
of the spectrum, those Nashville dudes are just like the tops. You can drop any sheet in front of them, they just like instantaneously.
Right, and it's not saying that if you can't read music, as well as they can, then you're not as good as them. It's they have to for the type of position they're in. If you're not a studio guy, you don't have to worry so much about what your sight reading is. You're playing live. Okay, that's totally different.
But I think what's good about those guys is because like one of the hindrances I've experienced with playing with people who primarily read music. Obviously, I read too. I fluently with everything that I do. I have to. A lot of people read and they play like they're reading from a sheet. There's no feeling in it. So for those dudes in studio, yeah, we both know what that's like. So for those dudes to be able to read and play as if they're not is and people who, any of our listeners, listening who are into musical, they'll know what we're kind of talking about, because sometimes when you're reading, you're focusing so heavily that it's stiff because you're counting every rest, you're counting every subdivision, and
you're not listening outside of it.
You're not exactly. That is the biggest part, is you're not listening. You're not, perceiving what's around you. So for them to be able to play and on a record and to be like, oh man, this guy's reading literally all of this, and you would never know it. That's like ungodly impressive.
Now, do you think they can do that because their reading is it's become second nature to them?
That's what I was going to just say. I think it's become second nature where they don't even have to think about it. Like sometimes I can fall into that category. I mean, still I would like to be able to sit down and rehearse it, because for me, my idea is you're never too good to rehearse. Some people are like, I'm the best, I never have to go over anything, and I completely disagree.
Yeah, wrong answer.
Yeah, like you're never too good to not practice. Like my high school hires me back every single year to play either guitar or bass in their pit band for the musicals, and it's a fun gig. It's a good paying gig. Everyone there is just the best. And I still go to a couple rehearsals. I mean, Could I go the night of and read the stuff down cold? Yeah, probably, but I would want to rather be prepared so there's no kinks in it.
Yeah,
but
that's
some
how I
people,
am.
but some people are just that confident, especially like the dudes in the Nashville studios. They have how many sessions a day? 10 or 12. And it's just like, okay, next person comes in, drop the sheets in front of them, and they go. And that's like an incredible work of just brain function with that. Like, I couldn't imagine, one of the things for me, and this falls with them too, what I always think makes someone a good musician is their consistency. I think that's very, very important. So, like, one of my favorite players is Ritchie Blackmore, who is the guitarist for Deep Purple. Like, I seldom talk about my favorite guitar players because I was always like, I was never the, guitar kind of guitar guy. Because usually when you find like it's, it's always like that's all I talk about, and it's like, no, it's not. It's like, I'd like to know every musician that I'm listening to, and I don't favor one over the other. So I always like kind of push that stuff to the side.
Oh yeah.
So for me, Ritchie Blackmore is really cool because he was in Deep Purple and he was in Ronnie James Dio's band Rainbow, which was really, really cool. He is one of the most consistent players I have ever heard because you will sometimes hear bands on a record and they're really good in the studio. And then you'll hear them live and it's like a dumpster fire. Or it's like someone taking a dumpster on fire and just pushing it down the stairs. And it's like, what happened?
It's the biggest disappointment.
Yes, where Ritchie was, even though he's supposedly a crazy person, he was never sloppy. Like, he was just so ungodly consistent with what he played. And I thought that was really, really just impressive. And I think that makes someone really good where it's like, oh, what you're hearing on the record is what you're going to get. It's like, yeah, it might not be note for note and he's improvising all over this thing. But just that consistency sake, I think, is so impressive. And I think that makes someone good because, yeah, there's like bands where it's like, oh, yeah, the album's great. And it's like, yeah, but have you heard him live? It sounds like a big train wreck. Like, I don't know,
Right, yeah. And no, I totally agree with that. I mean, consistency is everything. I mean, I know certain people from, in the past of like, you never know what you were going to get on a certain day. And that was a scary thought. And it's like, you're playing with so-and-so this weekend? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, and you're thinking in the back of your head, this gig's going to go one or two ways. I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know if he's even looked at the music or whatever. So being consistent is amazing quality to have as a musician because you become reliable and people can count on you and you get called back.
Yeah. That makes you a good player. That's why, like, I thank the Dark Lord every day for you and the guys in the Mischief because it's like, consistency is so important, and I'm very thankful for that because it's like, yeah, if there was a dependability factor with playing where it's like, oh no, this guy's gonna have a sloppy night here, we're gonna have a problem, big old beef stew slapping all over the stage, for lack of better terms, or maybe that is the best term. I don't really know.
Actually,
that's a damn good term. Yeah. But that's so funny. I think another cool point to kind of throw into this mess with what makes someone a good musician. Everyone always thinks music has to be a physical medium. Like, there's so many players. Like, I know Dave Grohl was always famous on record for saying, if you're not physically holding a guitar or an instrument, you're not really doing it and you're not a musician. And I completely disagree with that.
Oh, I get it because, everything's going electronic and virtual and all that.
Yes. So you look at guys like Deadmau5 and Skrillex, and one of my all-time favorites is Daft Punk because those guys are just brilliant. Now, they're not holding a physical instrument. Yeah, they have a computer in front of them and a bunch of knobs and buttons and things that I have no idea what they do because, I'm not part robot like they are. But when I've read about them or read interviews with them, their musical theory knowledge is absolutely bananas to the point where it's like Skrillex uses the Fibonacci theorem in a lot of his music, which that's, if people listening don't know what that is, that's people like Bach and Stravinsky and, people like that back in the day, a lot of composers would use in their music. It was a calculated number. It was the golden ratio. And was a way to calculate the song length and where the peak part of the song was, and supposedly it did something to like emotion, and it was kind of like a goosebump sensation, and it really like pushed just a big rise in the song. And like he does that, and he is just on like a composition level of just some of the greats, which is always looked over, which is a shame, because it's like, oh, he's playing with computers, and it's like, dude, it is so much more.
He knows what he's doing.
Than just it's so much more than just he's not holding a guitar. He doesn't know what he's doing.
He also sings too. Like he can sing.
He does.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never like. There's always.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel I don't blanking on the name of the band, but he like the band I think was pretty popular, and he was singing in it. So like he has musical talent. It's just he's just
the Village People.
That's it. Yeah, he was the construction worker.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, he was great in that. Yeah.
Excellent.
I don't know why he ditched that. That was kind of lame.
Yeah.
But whatever. But it's always cool when you get pleasantly surprised about things like that. Like I remember you and I think at the same time, it was the first time we watched it. And it's a testament to, again, musicianship or what makes someone good. You and I both watched the Tiny Desk concert of T-Pain. And it was just him and a keyboard player. And you and I were like, well, this dude's just all auto-tuned. What's it matter? Like, okay. And he was not auto-tuned. And we were like unanimously like, holy shit, this dude is fantastic. Why does he not do this more? He has like such a great R&B voice.
Yeah.
Never knew. Never knew.
If people haven't checked that out, go check out T-Pain on Tiny Desk Concert, NPR. I mean,
those
mind blown. Yeah,
now,
literally.
Those NPR concerts are great, the Tiny Desk ones, because like that's a sink or swim. Because there are some on there where their records are good, but live in a tiny setting like that, they can't fill that room.
Yeah.
And there's some that are just like incredible. It's like, oh my god, you could literally have this dude play inside of like a cardboard box, and they would just sound fantastic. And that's that is a testament to musicianship with that. And I love it. And God, they're so damn good, and we need to do one day. I say it all the time.
We really do. I love them.
We need to do one.
Yeah, they're great.
Now, how do you feel throwing it back, the metaphorical bocce ball back in your court? How do you feel with songwriting being a testament to musicianship? I mean, do you think, because now we're always talking about just individual instruments, but what do you feel about songwriting, where now it's everything in general? It's like that song that is written, and how that's a reflection of musicianship. Which I know I phrased that question like absolutely garbage, but take what you can from that and make it better. Do your job. You're great at it.
I'm gonna try. Yeah, that. I mean, for me, like, I'm not a songwriter. But I know what a song.
But you listen to a lot of music, though. I mean, know.
I know what it should, in a way, sound like. And it's what it's
subjectively, you know what's good and what's like. That's how Duke Ellington always said. There's two genres of music: good music and bad music. And even that is subjective in itself. So it's like impossible to even deduce any of this.
Right. But for me, it's like I could write a song in a way, but I'd have to have somebody like you translate it for me. And I know we do that all the time. Sometimes when we arrange stuff, I either tap it out or I sing it in a poor voice, and you figure it out.
But the thing that people don't realize is, even though you're not writing it yourself, you're still coming up with the idea of it and telling me how to do it and kind of translating it to me, and that isn't a lack of musicianship. It's you're still having the idea, so it's just as good. And that is still good musicianship, because you're still having the idea. And it's like, yeah, it might not be in the phrasing or words that you want it, but it's like that's still like incredibly important, because there are people who can't do that. So that's a great skill.
Thank you for making me feel better.
Yeah, when you come to me, you're like, I have drum song. Okay, well, try your best.
Yeah,
No,
you're literally
not even close
you're
to
just
that.
a translator.
Oh, dude, you have awesome ideas, whether it's for melodies or riffs or drum parts or everything like that. You got to definitely give yourself more credit, but you're too humble to do that.
Well,
so I can be cocky for you.
Thank you. You're the best.
I have my moments.
But yeah, back to the songwriting thing is.
Oh, I want to talk about you more, but okay.
Oh, no, I'm over me. I'm done. I mean, for me, it's when I look at songwriting, I look at it as some form of storytelling, and I like to see a natural progression of the story. So I like, I look for things that, like, songs that are staggered.
That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah.
Like a constant build up throughout it.
That's my absolute favorite. That's literally how I try to write everything.
Yeah, I mean, because it moves, and that's the goal. And you're going to find probably in this podcast that everything's going to come full circle back to feel. And it's songwriting, you have to create it. You have to create. It's got to have a feel. It's got to have movement. And by staggering it and putting a big crescendo on it, throughout the entire song is what I think is some of the most musical things that you can do. But
I love that you said that about the big crescendo, because that was one of the best terms of advice I ever got from one of my mentors, and it was like the best thing in the studio, because when I was learning to write stuff and arrange stuff, I came in with everything at 100% right off the top, and my mentor said to me, "Wait before you shoot your load." And I thought that was the best advice ever. Now, this is me being like 13 and being like,
yeah, right. Oh my God.
Where it's like, I knew what he meant, but I didn't want to admit it. But I'll tell you when the show's done.
Okay,
but,
good. Yeah, I'm confused.
But that's great, because the build is awesome. And it's like, if you look at a song kind of like a time bomb, it gets more tense, and then it finally, explodes, and then you're at 100%. I think that's very, very important. I think some of the best songwriters in history have really taken that kind of card out of the deck and used it. For me, one of my favorite songwriters, because everyone is always very, very, obviously not I like that we're not knocking any musicians or any writers today, which I think is good, because I always try to stay positive, because it's just opinions, and who knows who's right and who's wrong. There's really nothing, but a lot of people really, really favor Bob Dylan. I mean, for Christ's sake, the guy wrote the Star Spangled Banner. He's written everything and things like that. But for me, I always favored Carole King in terms of songwriting, because she not only wrote for literally everybody, but she wrote with just absolutely incredible feel. Not only was she a monster writer, but she was also like an incredible player. Like, no one realizes, like, a lot of her piano playing is like some of the top stuff. So as far as that goes, she was one of my favorites, because she has just some just ridiculous feel. Like, one of my favorite albums of all time is Carole King's Tapestry. Like, I have few albums where I consider perfect, and that one, cover to cover, I think is just absolute perfection.
Wow.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. And then again, if we look at other songwriters who they literally take, it's almost like the songwriting is the instrument in that regard, because they just can take it and just grab it by the balls and just go nuts with it, which is great. Like, I look at Prince as one of the absolute best.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about feel in that, it's like that man knows how to write not just one song, but literally every song. He's in that category, because also he just plays everything, or played everything.
Such an underrated guitar player.
And that's another great thing. Yeah. He is one of my favorites. He's in my top 3. Absolutely love that man. Yeah. Everything he's done does not get the recognition, And no one realizes, it's like, yeah, he's not a big shredding player, but that doesn't make him bad. It's like his rhythm is ridiculous. I mean, he can really, really
rip on guitar. I've seen it.
Oh my God, he rips like a motherfucker. Yeah. Like, let's be real. Pardon my absolute Trenton French there, but like, that's what the dialect was.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't tell by your accent.
Thank you. It's New Jersey. He can just rip, and it's like that feeling. Like, you can't get that. Like, that's not taught. Like, he was just born having that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And that really, really blew up for me. I think what really got me into Prince when I was younger, they did some kind of George Harrison tribute concert, and it was like all of these players on stage. Like, it was Eric Clapton and Tom Petty.
Oh, I know
the
Prince video.
Was on there.
Yeah.
You know the video. And it was Prince's turn to do a solo, and he just he just dominated it. Like, absolutely just
Wasn't fair.
No, it was incredible. And just to see a human being like have a guitar like that, or an instrument in general, just be a part of their body and it's an extension. That's like a whole nother level of musicianship. I think that's just insane.
Yeah, that's. Yeah,
we talk about Prince all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I
know?
could talk for days about Prince. Unbelievable. I mean, another one of I think we both shared is Stevie Wonder.
Oh my
as far
God,
as songwriting goes, and also the dude can play everything. But
I always said he was the best jazz musician to ever have a pop career, because that's
a great way to put it.
such a. Well, I mean, think about it though. That guy has incredible pop songs. Everyone likes Stevie Wonder, and I mean, like, his songs are easy to listen to, but when you break them down and you realize it's like, this dude's putting some incredible stuff in his songs that the average listener wouldn't realize. But if you're into theory and in playing, it's like, dude, this guy's putting in like whole tone scales and his stuff, and just some of these jazz runs he's doing, and his progressions are ridiculous, and it's just like, he knows what's up. Stevie always knows what's up. And it's not just like now Stevie, it's like forever he's been like that.
Yeah, and I think a good example of what you're talking about is Sir Duke. If you take that horn line that's in there and really dissect it and listen to it, it is so jazzy. It is so well written. But, when you listen to it normally, it's just part of the song. But no, when you really...
Everyone knows it. Everyone can sing
Everyone's singing it, but you're singing it, but you don't really know what it actually is.
No.
And that stuff is what really gets me every time. I love it. And I think with Stevie's writing, in a way, is like we were talking about the natural progression throughout the song, but he has very subtle changes in going from verses to choruses, but they make a huge difference at the end of the song. It's just like,
I know exactly.
Yeah, it
what
could
you
be
mean.
just like, they just added tambourine to this verse. Yeah, but that really moves it. Really picks up.
It's just that extra dimension,
right? It's it's
little
a great way to
details.
put it. Dimension. Yeah, it's little subtle things, but they actually make a huge difference as far as the song goes.
I mean, also just his arranging and composition is just the tops. Like,
he's a freak.
Oh, he's just a monster.
Yeah.
He's an absolute monster. And there is just no comparison, because he was the guy to take literally every genre and just put it together. And he never was. I mean, yeah, we can always say he's funk and R&B and that kind of thing, but he's so much more than that if you were to really dissect it. I mean, I remember, like, he could grab everyone, which is that's a testament to a good musician, where you can just pull everyone in. Like you and I. So for everyone listening, before we had the Rat Cave studio, we had a smaller studio at Will's place, and we were working on fixing one of our albums, and we constantly required fried chicken to power us. So we were either going to Popeyes or something like that to get chicken.
Shout out to Popeyes.
And we'd always have some kind of record in the car going, and I would always have Stevie Wonder at some point. And like, I remember just you and I listening, we'd be like, yo, wait, back that part up. And we'd just be like stank facing the whole time, and just be like, or you'd be like, dude, listen how nasty this drum part is. Cause usually it was like him playing drums on a lot of the records.
Yeah.
Too. And it's just like little nuances that you would hear, or little details. It's like watching a very impressive movie where you see something new every time. It's like listening to that. It's just like, where did this come from? This has been here for how many years, and I never noticed it until now.
That's my favorite.
I think, dude, we have to talk about My Hero now, because I think
I know where this is going.
Like, exactly.
I was going to mention
when I said
you're beating me to it.
Little details. About realizing little details that have been there this entire time, you never notice it, is My Hero, who is David Bowie. And when I always think of one of the top musicians and players and everything, like, that guy played literally everything. He was able to change his sound and persona over the years, but still be him. I think that's incredible as just an art. But you and I were trying to do a breakdown of Fame.
Yeah.
In the studio. how many guitars were on that part? We never noticed how many guitars are on this damn track, and just doing little things in the background. And we broke it down, and we were like, dude, what is this?
It was unbelievable. It's a song we've heard, I don't know, 1,000 times.
Oh, that record is just incredible.
You know, and we were just trying to basically cover it note by note.
I think we're just doing like an experiment in the studio
we were
just to see if we could do it.
Yeah, we're like, oh, this is a great track to do it. And I couldn't believe the layers of guitar that is on that song that we never knew about. Like, I didn't even know there's an acoustic guitar part on there.
Yeah, just randomly. And we had to go back and listen to it like a bunch of times because it was so faint. But once you heard it, then it became clear. And without it, you noticed it was missing.
100%,
you know?
Yeah.
I remember you and I going up to your studio monitors. You had your head up to one side. I had my head up to the other one. And I'll be like, what did you hear on your side? And you'd be like, there's the one going...
Yeah, that's the acoustic part.
And then on my side, I had the boom, and it was just like, what was he thinking? It doesn't matter what he was thinking because it was perfect. Like, it's just like that's musicianship, where it's just like you have all of these incredible moving parts.
That gives me chills thinking about it again.
Oh, dude, we were freaking out that day. I could how animated I was. Like, I'm always animated, but like that was just. But that was something, man. That was like enlightenment.
But it
like
worked.
Holy Christ.
And that's the crazy part is, we noticed if when you heard it, and then when you took it off and you took it out, it was missing a huge chunk of the song. And what's crazy, I don't know how he did it. Maybe he's just a pure genius. But all those parts somehow lined up to form perfectly.
Yeah, because on their own, they're so counterpoint. They're all different tones and timbres and different rhythms, and none of it's unison, but it all blended to make one. And we just looked at each other and we're like, wow, you know. Well, you know, because a lot of times when you do guitar parts, or however I've always learned to do guitar parts, you know, depending on where you're panning them, you know, that has a thing. But those parts were just like all over the place. Like they weren't near each other it was just like, and then the like icing on the cake is how simple that bass line is. That's the best part. Like, I love that, where it's just like you have all these crazy guitar parts and you just have bump, 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 and that's it.
Right.
And it's like, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's not a dummy. He was not a dummy by any means. He's like absolutely just brilliant.
Because back to what we were talking about, you know, play what's needed. Well, that bass part is what's needed, because you got the rest of the song is very busy with all these little things. So you can't have a busy bass part on top of that. It wouldn't gel. So that simple bass line works perfectly.
Yeah.
And you know what? You just singing it right there already got my head bobbing. You know, like, and that's the point of it. Is feel.
I mean, I'll say the same thing I said. Oh, good Lord. Well, dude, Bowie was a master of feel, and we know that. But I'll say the same thing I said that day. You know, he had been dead for how many years, and I was like, dude, he is still taking us to school. Like, that's what, like, unapologetically, that's what that was. Like, he was still taking us to school. Like, we were like, this has been here the whole time?
Still can't believe it.
Dude, that's just... So it's cool because that's a different layer of what makes someone a good musician. He harnessed that. Like, just that idea of creation like that and all these moving pieces, and it worked. I mean, the guy played everything, and just for him to be able to put that together and envision it is just incredible, and that's just a testament to how skilled he was. Yeah. Good Lord, dude. And that's cool because it kind of brought me to the next piece I wanted to talk about with this, is the genre of it, where Bowie was every genre. Like, literally, he did everything. He had the dance record, he had the pop record, he had the folk stuff, he had the rock stuff. He did everything, which is cool. So I think one of the things that a lot of people push to the side in musicianship is genre. So you're more hip to a lot of the modern country scene than I am. But I do know a lot of those players, because people just push it to the side because they're not necessarily listening to the music part. It's always like a lot of the lyrics and the storytelling, which is important. But those players, whether it's a simple bass part or a guitar part, those guys are like ungodly solid.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, so for me, when I think country, I'm always like, you know, Johnny Cash and Hank Williams and like all the old guys like that, or like early Les Paul and like,
Actual country.
or Chet Atkins,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff, like the train track sound. But so I always looked at modern country more as like a southern rock kind of feel, but that has a lot of moving parts too in a completely different way, which I think is impressive because a lot of those times you have like 3 guitars. You have an acoustic guy, you got an electric guy, you got a slide guy, you have a whole lot of that stuff. And a lot of people will be like, well, this dude's he's strumming chords. There's nothing great about it. And even though like it's not my forte for listening, I completely disagree because you need to be so solid with that stuff. Even if it's just a guy strumming on chords, it's like that is playing with that makes you a good musician. That is a good musician right there with a lot of those players right there.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't get into, I guess, country until more recently.
Or like the pop country, I guess more so.
Whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's definitely crossing genres.
Someone has cowboy boots on, whatever.
Yeah. And and for me, it was always, I mean, everybody listens to music differently. So I'm not too much a lyrics person. I listen to music. I listen to the bass player first, not the drums.
Well,
I know that's
a good boy.
Yeah. So like I'd listen to, the song structure and the instruments before I even think about what they're saying. So that's kind of what opened my eyes to country because I didn't care about the lyrics because, sometimes they can be whatever. I was listening to the songwriting and the musicians that are on the record. And I was like, these are some serious players. And also the songwriting is fantastic,
Yeah. And a lot of people overlook it.
Yeah, because you can put some crazy lyrics over top of it or silly lyrics and it overshadows what's going on in the background and it's all live instrumentation and these guys are killing it. And it goes back to the studio session players, but also you got the guys playing live with these artists are just as good.
Yeah.
And with country now is like it's I guess a great example is one of my favorites is Chris Stapleton. I mean, he kind of falls into the older, more traditional.
Yes, totally had that old school feel.
Right.
Yeah. But he's like ungodly talented guy.
Exactly. And what you mentioned earlier was, listening to somebody on the record and then listening to him live. Well,
yeah.
I've seen him 2 or 3 times now. This dude sounds just like the record to a T. And I was kind of doing some digging on the internet and I came across, he's an engineer and producer, Vance Powell. He's got a bunch of Grammys now, but he's out of Nashville and he recorded all of Chris Stapleton's stuff. And it was an interview with him and he was talking about, Chris Stapleton, and he said the exact same thing. He's like, him in the studio recording is exactly what you're going to get live. And that's how they recorded that album. Like they didn't dub over.
Oh, in a live setting, kind of.
Wow. Chris played guitar and sang at the same time. They did not overdub any of his vocals. Everything was recorded at one time.
He is an awesome player too.
Yeah.
Like he's no joke.
And he started out as doing songwriting. I mean, he wrote so many hits for people and then eventually just wanted to do his own thing. So another person that checks off all the boxes. But, listen to his records and listen to what the musicians are playing on it. It's not fast stuff. It's nothing technically crazy.
Nope.
But it's consistent, it's solid, and it feels good, and it's the right thing that needs to be played at the time.
It's got that feel, baby. That's what matters.
Yeah, so for anybody, unsure about country or, I felt the same way. I mean, but
yeah.
give it another listen and start, kind of listening to what's going on in the background. Listen to, the musicians on it, because they're incredible. But
yeah. See, now it's funny because I always like the older country stuff, and then on the flip side of it, I'm always like, yeah, I'm not really into a lot of shredding stuff, but it's like I'm huge into bluegrass. And it's like that is like the most shredding shred you will ever get. And I always give those guys a lot of props, because you're doing these incredible, like gut-bustingly fast runs with absolutely no distortion to cover up any mistakes. So it's like you just have to do it clean, and you have to make it.
you have to do it right.
Work.
Yep.
And unapologetically, I got into bluegrass because of the Country Bears at Walt Disney World back in the day, and that's what kind of got me into that. The Country Bears are a very good band. You can come fight me if you disagree. But when you get into the shredding realm, like that is also a commendable skill musicianship wise. Now, obviously, I'm always more feeling things, but I have like the utmost respect for kind of stuff, because you always have like the three different big groups of shredding. You got your bluegrass guys, you got your jazz and bebop guys, and then you have a lot of your super heavy metal kind of stuff where it's the just ungodly fast players. And it's like, yeah, that is an incredible skill. I mean, I love the feeling kind of stuff, and I like to sit back and groove. And, for me, that's not necessarily what my listening taste is. But, like, so one of my favorite jazz guys is Wes Montgomery, guitarist.
Great player.
Just super monster player. I love his albums. I listen to literally all the time. And he is, dude can shred when he has to. But then when you get into, like, even deeper further, like, oh, God, you look at, like, your Charlie Parkers and stuff like that. Like, you want to talk about just the most ungodly, like, incredibly fast playing and playing over just ridiculous changes. Like, I had a student who wanted to get into bebop, and she brought me in one of the charts, and she was, guitarist, and I was like, all right, so here's a fun game we're going to play. What key is this in? And she's like, oh, it's an F major. And I said, how many of these chords are in the key of F major? And she said, none. And I said, well, have fun. And that's literally what is, learning to play over top of every single chord like that, and it's like, that's why, guys like, Parker and like Coltrane, that's like ungodly, incredible musicianship there too, because it's like you are taking songs with just every crazy balls of the wall chord you ever could have, in just every interval degree you could ever have possibly. Like, you got your flat fives and sharp fives and your sharp nines, and there's all sorts of craziness. And they hit every chord coming, and they're soloing over top of each change. And that is like a ridiculous skill. Granted, a lot of that was created just for, competitive kind of style, where it was everyone kind of soloing against each other all the time. And in a competition standpoint, which I'm not competitive with that kind of stuff, but that is a really cool skill. So it's like, I think we kind of hit all the parameters of this, because you have the far end, which is like, oh, this guy's just a strummer, but he's so solid and he has such feeling. And then we're on this way other crazy end of the spectrum, where it's like, yeah, you got your Coltrane's and dudes like that, and your Django Reinhardt's, where they're playing like these, or your Chet Atkinses, and they're playing these ridiculously crazy speeds and playing over all the change, or like your Randy Rhoads or any of the guitar shredders like that, where it's like, oh, they're just doing crazy classical runs over all this kind of stuff at like just incredible speeds. And I mean, you can just really tell. So I mean, I think in conclusion, like, what are the main bases that really do make someone a good musician? Because everything contradicts each other. It's like, oh, you got to be fast. Well, look how slow this guy is, and he's considered incredible. Yeah. Got to have a really intense theory. Yeah, but this dude can't even tie his shoes. He's like a monster player, Or it's like, oh, your technique, Squidward technique, And it's like, well, this guy plays, perfect technique and things like that. It's like, well, yeah, but like Wes Montgomery plays with just his thumb. Jeff Beck plays with just his thumb. James Jamerson playing bass played with one finger only, with like another finger stacked on it. That's like like a gross technique, but it's like,
it works.
Argue he's not a good player. I mean, it's nuts. Will, you always have like perfect in conclusion sentiments, and I can't compete. I've learned now 7 episodes deep. I thought
this was my first episode.
first episode, in, I just can't
Yeah.
compete with you. I just can really tell that you're going to just be a really, sport. You're going to slug this one out of the park now, pal. But what would you like to say as like kind of a little ending thing here, like with this? Because you always wrap it up so nicely. And,
well, now the pressure is on. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's hard to say because everything contradicts itself. But I think, if you take some key things out of it is, be consistent. That goes with any genre.
I think consistency and solidity are both very important, whether you're a fast player, slow player, no theory, all theory.
Yeah, you have to be consistent no matter what it is. Making it feel good, which...
I was going to say, what's my second favorite F word of all time?
Feel.
Feeling. It's feeling.
Oh, yeah,
feel.
I had another one, but that's for another podcast.
That's my first favorite.
Yeah. Feel, which you've probably heard a ton on this episode, and you probably will hear for all of our episodes because it's that important. And
I mean, say if you're in the right musical circles, you hear it all the time.
Yeah, it's most important. We did feel. We did consistency.
Because I can't even say like style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Consistency.
No.
And solidity. It is very tough. I think it's always going to be a subjective thing. And I honestly think for Michael F. from Brooklyn, I honestly think that there is no right answer.
No.
Nor is there a wrong answer. And I think it's like any other art where it's completely subjective. I mean, we got to talk about some of our favorites and some of the things that we favor. And not everyone may feel that way. There are going to be some people where it's like, well, you have to be an incredibly fast player or you suck. And they're not necessarily wrong because it's an interest that someone might have. That's what they might look for when they listen, But I love this question. That's why I thought this was such a good one for this week because it's just such an open topic. It's not anything specific. It's like, well, what do you think? It's just an opinionated thing, which I think is great.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you. Yeah, I would say thank you, Michael, again for writing that in. I thought that was a great, great, great topic. I don't know if Will thought the same thing. I hope he did.
Oh, absolutely. We didn't mention you be a good person, which we've mentioned before.
Oh, that's the top one. Yes. No matter what you do, what you play, what genre of music, be a good person. Will, that was beautiful. That's what I wanted.
That goes
Mr. Rogers would be so proud of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes the longest way. That's how you get all the gigs. Is you got to be a nice person, not an asshole.
Show up on time. Come dressed.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think in conclusion, that's perfect. Guys, this has been the Drop the Beat podcast. If you, again, would like to submit a question, go to www.charleslorita.com/contact, and there's the little form box on there you can fill out. And if we pick your question, we're going to contact you, and we're going to give you a free shirt for yo ass that you should wear on your torso. I think the yo ass is just a pleasantry, I guess. Yeah. If you guys would like to support us on Patreon, go to charleslorita.com, and there's a big gaudy orange button right on the main page. We are doing our Patreon for just $1 a month, and that'll put you in the running for some of the fun stuff that we do and discounts in the merch shop and other things like that. Just $1. We didn't want to do any crazy tier kind of things. We thought that would just be fun enough, and we always appreciate the support, whether you help us on Patreon or not, even if you're just listening and sharing our stuff and just being a good person, like William said.
Yes.
That is important. So, in closing, my name is Charles Laurita.
And I'm Will Sarver.
And we would most definitely like to thank you guys for listening to us beat off this week. And we will see you next time.
Ciao.